This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. Well, to hear some people talk about it, who can be opposed to the Inflation Reduction Act? After all, it will reduce the deficit, it'll help us convert into a new energy plan, and also take care of prescription drugs. Well, not so fast, at least some people say, such as Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia. She serves on the Appropriations and Commerce Committees, among others. So, Senator, it's always great to have you with us. I've read that you might take a little issue with some of the things being said about this, but including by your colleague there from West Virginia, is Senator Joe Manchin.
Oh, I disagree with the direction that he's going and that the Democrats are taking us right now. I mean, we have such high inflation. I mean, when I go to the grocery store in West Virginia, I hear about it every day. People are concerned about their power bills, the cost of food, cost of gas. We can't walk away from that, and this bill walks away from that. Even the studies, the Penn Wharton study, I'm sure you've seen, says that inflation will rise a little bit under this, but it won't go down. Shouldn't we be doing policies that are going to cause inflation to come down is where I differ with this. There's a huge green energy. I'm not anti-green energy, but it is overtaken in this bill. It will hurt our industries in West Virginia, our hardworking men and women in the oil and gas business or in the coal business. It will also, I think, hamper our energy security in this country. I just have huge exceptions with all of this. The overpowering 80,000 new agents in the IRS, it just keeps going on, and I'm very disappointed with the direction that we're going.
So there are a couple of questions here, it strikes me, which is, what does it do overall for the economy? In other words, who does it particularly help or hurt? On the overall point, you're right about Penn Wharton budget model. I actually interviewed somebody yesterday from that group, and basically it almost comes out neutral. It says it won't do much any which way. Let's assume that's right, that it doesn't help on the deficit at all, but it doesn't hurt on the deficit, but it does address some things like prescription drugs. Isn't that sort of impressive that we could do something that big and not increase the deficit? It's been a while since Congress has done that, hasn't it?
I think that we've been working bipartisan on ways to bring prescription drugs down. It differs from the methods that they're using in this bill. If that was the exclusive thing that was in here, I think we could have a bipartisan vote. I think I'll go back to your previous statements where you said Penn Wharton says it doesn't impact inflation one way or the other. Well, we're at 9.1, so I would hope anything that you're doing that you're calling a budget or an Inflation Reduction Act would actually reduce inflation. So that's a misnomer right there. And I think it satisfies a lot of their constituencies in terms of renewables. I'm all about renewables, but it is a major foot on the scale for green bank, a lot of ways to get back into regulating emissions in a different way that the Supreme Court has says you can't do in the West Virginia versus EPA. There's all kinds of things in here that I think really have lost the focus. Prescription drugs, that's probably, if you can bring down the cost of that. Are you bringing down innovation? Are you bringing down how many drugs get to market? Are you bringing down the availability of drugs? These are the questions that haven't been answered.
Senator, as you say, there's a fair amount in this proposal. It has to do with green energy or renewables. There also reportedly is, as part of the deal, may not be exactly in this proposal, some things for fossil fuels as well. I understand you're saying, wait a second, let's get that done, not just promise it. But let's assume for the moment they would actually do some of the things, for example, with respect to permitting and increased leases, particularly in offshore. Would you have a different view about this package?
Well, we're going to have a test vote on that in about an hour. Senator Sullivan from Alaska has an opportunity for the Democrats to say they're serious about permitting reform. We're going to be able to take down the Biden rule, which has slowed down all of the permitting in these areas. And we're going to be able to say, let's take it back to a more sensible, common sense place. So this will be a test vote to how serious they are about this. And I've never seen a bill that says, okay, I've negotiated this, but guess what? I'm going to get another one in 6 weeks. That's risky business here in Capitol Hill, I think, because that, you know, who's being spoken for and whose votes are being spoken for? Nobody asked me.
Let me put this a different way around if I could, Senator.
Sure,
let's assume that this does not become law, because it's not law yet, and there's a fair number of obstacles between here and there. And in fact, that there is a shift, certainly on the House side in the midterms. Is it an alternative to say to the American people, we're just not going to do anything about things like inflation, prescription drugs?
No, I think if you look at what we did in a bipartisan way with the IIJA, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, in that bill, I negotiated myself for electric vehicles, for electric vehicle charging stations, for more resiliency on materials. we had the first time ever a climate chapter in that bill that I myself, as a Republican, negotiated with Senator Carper. So these are things we should and can do together. There is a critical mass, I think, in the Senate that wants to face these difficult problems together. I know on prescription drugs that Senator Grassley's been working on this across the aisle with a lot of other Democrats. This is the way it should be done, not something that comes up on a Thursday night a week ago that all of a sudden now we're going to spend another almost $800 billion and tax a whole bunch of people when nobody really knows what the real impacts of this are.
Which all leads me to the politics of it, if I could. We talked about a fair number of senators here today, and we'd left out Ms. Sinema from Arizona. Do you have a sense about whether, in fact, it's likely this will make it through?
Well, I never want to predict because that's a dangerous game here as well, because things can come up quickly or die quickly. I think we're in a stall right now. I know Senator Sinema very, very well. She's very strong, and she's going to look at the aspects of this bill that displease her, and she's going to try to make changes, and I believe that's what she's doing right now. When
will we have an answer? This weekend?
That's what my family keeps asking me. When will we have an answer? Because we're going, you know, it's recess. It's time to go home and get normal again and see our family. So hopefully over the weekend, one way or the other.
Well, I certainly want you to see your family. No question about that. Thank you so much to Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia. Coming up, we're going to